Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Are you still? All right. Well, we just have 30 or 40 minutes to go, but it's no doubt that everyone in the panel is an achiever. I don't think that's the issue anymore. We all know that. We have billionaires with us on stage. I don't know, except for Bayani. Should I call you a billionaire? All right, but today's panel, I'll go straight to the point. Today's panel is how power couples manage their stakeholders. So let's ask some questions that perhaps were not addressed in the presentation. I'll start with Mikee and Sheila, no? I mean, you were a businessman, you are a businessman, you are a billionaire of a businessman, and yet you decided to go into politics. A party list that supposedly, that essentially is for the marginalized sector. If it's the stakeholder, who is your prime stakeholder? Is it your shareholders in business? I mean, business is about profit, and yet as a politician, you have a different group of constituency and stakeholders. What happens when one is towards the other? Who is more important to you? Is it your business stakeholders, or frankly speaking, the marginalized who may not be able to benefit from some business decisions you'd have to make?
Yeah, actually, I wear two hats now, no? As a businessman and as a corporate man and a public servant. I think it gives you a sense of yung iniisip mo na ngayon yung kapakanan ng bansa, no? Yung kapakanan ng bawat. I am a pro-poverty congressman. What does it mean? I've espoused the unconditional cash transfers. My advocacy is how to bring poverty. The Philippines has a 23% below poverty line Filipinos. What does it mean? It means 2 or 3 Filipinos that you see outside does not eat 3 times a day. So it's my advocacy. That's why my bill or my laws are centered to anti-poverty reduction or anti-poverty campaign, no?
But my question was, who's more important? Your stakeholders in business, or is it the stakeholders of one Pacman party list?
Right now,
What won't you cross in business that may not benefit them?
right now it's not conflicted. I have the consumers for the airline, consumers for the electricity, and it goes hand in hand with the business or the consumer to the the business to consumer type of relationship, wherein my role as a public servant is really how to serve and how to eradicate poverty in the country. No? From 23% in 3 years, I want it down to about 14%. So it's really not conflicted with each other.
All right, I'll continue with that later on. With Bayani and Marides, clearly you are the power couple in Marikina, and you do run a construction company at this point. Is there any point where you felt that business and public service shouldn't mix? If you're running the city and you own a business, when are the lines crossed? Have you ever closed a deal wherein it was your construction company that benefited? These are the questions that are hard for stakeholders and families in power.
It has been our policy not to get any contracts where there is a conflict of interest. First of all, it's against the law, and we don't want to be in a position where our values will be compromised. In Marikina, we don't do any contracts with the city government.
I think you have to give them a hand for that too.
Yeah. It's so easy for people to find out, no? When there are conflicts of interest. So you don't want to get into that situation. Also, we would rather be doing work for private sector when there's because the business is quite robust now. There's a lot of opportunities there. And what we like to do now is hire from Marikina for projects outside of our city. So we're able to give jobs to the Mariqueños, where before perhaps they didn't have opportunities. And because of the discipline that we had instilled, it's so much easier to manage now these people kasi trained na sila.
I may add to that. Actually, we were the second PPP signed in this country and the first PPP to be completed now. And now we are doing the common station of the MRT, LRT. And all this work, well, we got them through competitive bidding. And there's no conflict at all. The only conflict is time. We have to devote time for business, and we have to devote time for our constituency. Right now, Congress is so busy dealing with the budget. No? I should be there. The conflict of time, only that conflict of time. Yeah.
All right, thank you. With Chris and Nanette, Nanette has made clearly a name for herself when it comes to hope, and I think that she's chosen to make a stand in advocating a plastic-free neutral, considering it's a profitable business. And yet your husband is in a consumer business, so to speak, that deals with a lot of plastic. I mean, I'm sure you have Hunt's sachet, it's in plastic, the bottles. I'm curious how you both deal with that in terms of where you stand in values of companies should deal with plastic better, and how you in Century and Shakey's, etc., have to tell Nanette, you know, we have to make a profit and plastic is cheap. What's the middle ground?
I'm a believer in what Nanette does in the plastic exchange. So we are actually one of the first companies to declare ourselves also plastic neutral. So Century, Pacific Food, and Shakey's, by the end of this year, will be plastic neutral in the same way that Hope is plastic neutral. So she connected us to Republic Cement, where we negotiated an arrangement where the Century and Shakey's together, we put out about 23,000 tons of consumer plastic a year, into the market. So by the end of this year, we would have worked with Republic to collect the same amount at our cost so that both companies can be plastic neutral.
Do you want to add, Nanette?
No, basically Chris has laid it out. No, I don't think there's necessarily a conflict, and I think that as a business person myself, I understand the push and pull between profitability and being responsible stewards, right? So Chris and I talked about it. I would have never, as a spouse, insisted, because I understand he also has responsibility to shareholders. But what we looked at very carefully was what was the cost, right? And to make sure that the kinds of solutions we were offering were affordable and were valued by the people. I'm sure the shareholders of Century and as well as Shakey's very much appreciate that the company's efforts towards sustainability are concrete and does not highly affect profitability.
All right, what is the role, or how important is the role of a wife? I mean, it's often said that the success of a man is really who he's married to. I don't know if it's literal, but does it really matter? I want to ask Sheila, being married to someone like Mikee, who's very aggressive in business and is very active in politics, what is your role and what is your say in the company? Do you have a boundary of, I'm going to leave this to my husband, or how do you express who you are as an equal? And I'll ask, of course, the wives in the panel. You are vice chair right now of AirAsia, am I right? Yes, okay.
Good afternoon,
Yeah.
Karen. Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, it's not really easy being a wife of a politician. However, since I have the liberty of time, so to speak, since I have my own businesses, then it's like an example is like he will say, tomorrow there's a board meeting in the house, there's lunch with my fellow congressman. And he just thinks that I'm a Wonder Woman. That you can just change your schedule, whip up a menu for 10, and that's it. So, but again, I said first and foremost, I am a mother and a wife. So everything is held back if I need to bring my son to the doctor, try to bring our youngest who's 3 years old to school. That has always been a priority. But of course, like I said, we respect each other's expertise. We respect each other's space to grow. But then again, I always consult him, and probably he also seeks my opinion, even if at the end of the day he still has the last say. But I'm appreciative of the fact that even when he talks about politics, that he shares a lot with me.
Okay. What about Marides and Bayani? You seem to be, I mean, you know, you were both mayor at one point, so who has the last say? And do you, all right, you're going to be like Chris. No, but, so she has the last say, but how important is it to listen to each other's point of view, or let's say a decision that has to be made in the city of Marikina?
Well, in the city of Marikina, each of us had our own time to lead, to be mayor. So,
But do you always have the same? I mean, you don't. I think that's important.
I left everything to her in her time as mayor because I was so busy with the MMDA.
Yeah, but did you ever tell her, you know, what you did was wrong?
No, she will never accept that.
Okay. What about her? Did you ever tell him, you know what, Bayani, the problem with you is this. I mean, how are power couples made of, right? In terms of the balance of power.
Well, during Bayani's time,
Yeah.
I was a sportive wife, and I
Okay.
needed to neutralize his aggressive stance. No? So I was more the person who was going to the communities, dealing with the women, dealing with the marginalized, and he was the one, you know, driving the bulldozer to clean the streets of Marikina. But when I became mayor, I told him, I cannot do your style. No? I have to do my own style. So I managed my way. And it's okay for him because he wasn't busy. Good thing when he became chairman of MMDA, because during the start of his term, he didn't want to leave his chair.
Okay.
Diba?
Yeah.
But he thought he was still mayor. Until
Yeah.
after a while, and I said, Dad, I can't work under your shadow.
I'm curious, Mikey, you didn't get to speak. Does your wife have strong opinions with politics? I mean, especially in voting for a speaker, where you stood being the head of the party list coalition. Did she say, like, Mikey, what are you doing?
All the time.
Okay. And then do you listen, follow? What's the line?
Actually, we bounce ideas with each other, no? Tama ba itong ginagawa ko? O kaya, naku, alam mo, nagkamali yata ako dito sa decision na to. You know, she has been my conscience, and she puts me in the right direction most of the time, no? Although I'm aggressive both in business and politics, but she has kept me grounded. And
Are you under at home?
under?
Si Chris kasi sasabihin niya, under ako, Karen. Simple lang.
In business and politics, I'm very aggressive.
Okay.
But pagdating ko sa bahay, I have to abide.
Yan. Okay. Now, interestingly, I was gonna say, Nanette and Chris, they're a couple I know well. We've been in the beach together, so dinners together. So I'm very familiar with Nanette specifically. And Nanette has very strong ideas, even in business. You'll be surprised that her ideas are actually carried on in the company to make her the Po family
Family council.
council chairperson being an in-law, a woman, that of a Chinese company, would mean that she's respected for her own point of view and how she maneuvers herself in the company. So when it comes to Nanette, how far does she go in terms of suggesting for Century Tuna, Shakey's, etc.?
Yeah, so the family council is separate from the company, no? So the company has the board of directors, etc., and then management. So the family council is primarily a Po family governance structure, you know? So those things are separate. But having said that, I have to make a lot of important decisions on strategy, allocating capital, on people, even day-to-day decisions. No? So I use her as my closest advisor. No? I may not necessarily listen to I may not necessarily take the advice that she gives me, but she does give me her advice, and I value it very much. No? It's a cliche. Earlier you said that a man, the most important decision they make is who they marry. You know? So in my case, in front of everyone, in front of my wife, I'll say, I won the wife lottery.
Nax! Fairness!
So,
May ganon.
I'm so lucky that it turned out this way, you know, that she's a great mother, and when she takes care of the home, I can focus of course, I'm there for the kids, I'm there for her, I have family responsibilities, but if the home is stable, then I can also be focused and channel my energies towards business. You know? So I guess we work together on many levels, right? On the business side, it's informal advice. On the philanthropy side, I do get involved in some of the things that she does, and vice versa. And then on the personal, and then on the family side, we spoke about the family council. So we operate together on many levels.
Yeah. What, Nanette?
No, just to weigh in on your point on Century and how much input, no? Part of the job of the family council is to establish rules, no? Because you'll not always have spouses or that are necessarily helpful, right? So there's a very clear distinction between what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. So whenever people say, do you work for Century? And I know I told you this before at the beach. I said, no, I don't work for Century, I work for Crispo Inc. Di ba? Yun na lang yun. Because that should be the boundary, right? Whether or not he decides to use any sort of, we use each other as sounding boards. If he decides to use that advice or not is completely up to him, but that's the limit.
Now, the dark side of being a power couple is not all power couples live happily ever after every day. There's also the problem of competition with. So I'll ask first Bayani and Marides, no? I mean, be honest. Were you ever competitive with each other at any point in time? There. Okay. So I mean, when I say competition, it's like, we're all human and we want to be our best selves, but when you have a spouse that's performing quite well, there's a part of you na ayaw mo maiwan, you want to shine as well. I mean, was there any point that you felt competitive towards each other?
No. But we are a board of three. My wife, me, and our daughter. I'm always outvoted. And I've learned earlier in life, I'm much older than the other. So I learned to say yes, dear.
But you're saying this now. But then I'm curious, Marides, this is competition between power couples. Is it real?
I see it in some other couples, but in our case, maybe because I was not really born into a political family, and so I thought that I'll be in office only for 3 years, and then he would come back to finish the work in Marikina. But I had to stay for 9 years. I wasn't really competing in terms of popularity or more work done. It's just that the style of doing things was different because his style is different, and my style is maybe a little more softer, gentler, more like a teacher, mother for the city. So I think yun lang, different styles.
I'm curious very briefly, since
Yes.
you're a power couple in politics, do you believe that the anti-dynasty law is better for the Filipino people than, let's say, I'm not saying it's both of you, you both performed well, but you're seeing problems in other parts of the Philippines. If the husband has already expired his term, he let his wife run or his daughter run. Are you for the anti-dynasty bill?
Can I just share something? Because, our family has been there for 18 years in Marikina, and people say is that dynasty, no? But, the reason that there's dynasties is because you want to propagate or to continue with the programs that you've already invested so much time of your life in. And the only way that we can really continue with programs is if we have strong political parties, which we do not have in this country. Unfortunately, that is the answer to political dynasties, because that's the only other way that your programs will continue. Because isn't it so frustrating to put policies in place for 3 years just to have it reversed after years? Nobody wants to waste their time and energy building up something that somebody else will destroy. Fortunately in Marikina, 18 years changed character. If we didn't change the people's attitude there, it would probably be so sad for me now to think that Marikina is back to dirty, basura, and everything. No?
Okay, quickly, you want to answer that? Would you vote for the
I think,
anti-political dynasty bill?
This family dynasty, some good points. No?
I mean,
At
anti
least-
or pro?
Depends. But at least if you are born in a political family, you have a good background. Yeah. Because there are so many people who get into power by chance, by sheer luck, or probably voted for one bright idea. But when a public servant ceases to have new ideas, no? Then he begins to do the same as every politician.
Becomes
That's the
corrupt.
politician's way. Okay? Kaya, like what I said earlier in my in my speech, I started off with what I learned from my father. He was mayor for at least 42 years before my time. It's not really a dynasty, but I learned much from him. And then that was the basis where I started.
Now, Mikee and Sheila, in terms of competition, I mean, Sheila, you're seeing that your husband, I mean, clearly you have a great marriage, but your husband's becoming more popular, more visible, running this billion-dollar business. Is there pressure on your end to keep up? Is this a reality with power couples? Because everybody always talks about the gloss of it, but then the day-to-day living with a powerful man, and you are focused on your family, you do run a restaurant, your restaurant businesses, but did you at any point feel that pressure?
I wanted to say that at the end of the day, whatever happens in the boardroom or in our businesses, that's not the priority for me. It's our family, our relationship, our marriage. At the end of the day, it's recognizing that that is the priority. Otherwise, I just try to do my best, and whatever mandate that he tells me to, like early this year, okay, I think you're ready. Sit in the board, and I'll just guide you through. I am just trying to do my best. In whatever I do. And to be honest, I've always regarded him as the breadwinner of the family, that whatever is his is mine and mine is mine.
Whatever is his is mine,
Is
and
that-
what's mine
what is mine is mine,
Brilliant.
and what
I
is his
agree.
is mine. So I guess that could be a rule, right?
Okay. No, but then Mikee, are you conscious? I mean, are you conscious as a husband that that you'd have to kind of keep the balance to make sure, what's it like in everyday life?
First,
I mean, do you have a lot of women, like, all after you in Congress?
First of all, I would like to answer yung competitiveness. No?
Yes, yeah.
Because our life has been very competitive with each other. No? Every day. No? Every day, very competitive kami. Bakit? Kasi parati namin sinasabi, we always talk about, sino bang mas kamukha mo, anak? Daddy mo o mami mo? So, and then, of course, we always ask our children, sino ba favorite mo? Mami mo o daddy mo? So, that's the competition that we have every day now. We have 5 children. The eldest being here, 26 years old. And the youngest, fortunately, we have a 3-year-old. Kaya very competitive kami doon. No? But outside of those competition, we more or less complement each other more than be competitive.
I gave them everything. I gave them to my daughter and to her, to my wife, and I have a very limited budget to Galiban.
That's a good one. So she knows, no? Alam niya, the pera that you have.
Yeah.
Dapat ang lalaki, give them a credit card para the wife can see.
I don't use credit card.
Ako, mahirap yan.
May record yan.
Yeah, yun nga, may record ang credit card. Okay, Marides, I mean, clearly, what do you think is the secret all these years that, your marriage was never sacrificed, even after all the temptations that surround politicians?
Okay, early on, we set guidelines,
Yan, maganda to.
rules, like
written rules? I like
no,
that.
we just talked about it and
Okay.
said, okay, no checking in wallets, no checking cell phones,
Ah,
privacy for one another.
So
But
he
of
can
course-
check yours?
No, he cannot.
Okay.
But he doesn't.
Okay, but why no checking?
I think it's more for privacy. Like you have your own life. I have in the sense that you respect, his privacy.
Okay.
No, so that's
One.
trust.
Okay, trust.
And if there are issues, then we discuss it. I take it up with him. If there are, things I hear, which will happen in
Meron, may
politics.
things you hear?
Yeah, of
Gwapo,
course.
ganun siya
There's
kagwapo?
always, yeah. Take it.
Things you hear.
There are always intrigues in politics.
Yes.
And I think many political wives will tell you, that, inevitably during the course, even as mayor, like this, because as you say, people
course.
will try to tempt. And if they can't get to your good side, they'll get to your bad side. So I think there are a lot of challenges in that respect.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Sir, wait, sir, there's a woman at the back. Can you give us your name? You'd have to be... No, she was standing a while ago. Go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. I appreciate all your talks. Thank you so much for the inspiration. I actually have 2 questions. I hope that you can accommodate both. So first is for Ms. Marides. What advice would you give to a student, for me, who is not interested in entering politics but is willing to make a difference? Specifically, what advice can you give me to improve the culture on pedestrians in Katipunan? So it's
One by one. First
Okay,
question.
Okay, in terms of what you can do, there are many things that ordinary citizens can do. One is to be proactive in complaining. Complain to your local government, call 888, make sumbong everything you see, take pictures of the basura around you and post it. Tell them there's this garbage pile here on this boulevard, there's this garbage pile here on this corner, there's unruly people on this corner. Just be so sumbongero, and let the government try to do their work. The problem with many times, when we started out in Marikina, nobody would even make sumbong. Nobody would call the government's attention because they feel like nothing will happen anyway. But no, I believe that things will happen. And especially with 888, I don't know if people here, anybody in this room has call that number for President Duterte, but I'll tell you, people in government are afraid of that number. People don't want to be called attention to, they don't want to be cited, they don't want their names involved in any such obnoxious reports. And so government is firing people on account of non-answering of 888 responses. So I think if everybody would just make it a habit every day to take a picture, post it in Facebook, tell them where it is, send the report to 888, I think things will happen in this Philippines.
All right, very good. Do you have another question?
Thank you. Yes, I actually do. Sorry. For Ms. Nanette-Po,
Okay.
how does Hope intend to push for creating, does Hope intend to push for creating biodegradable plastic in the next few years for substituting current plastic neutrality to be more efficient way to reduce plastic?
Yeah, biodegradable plastic is already in the Philippines, but it's not applicable. It doesn't have applications across all substitutions, no? So I think there are already a lot of companies who offer biodegradable, spoons and forks and takeaway packaging. So it is available here. It's just not applicable. Let's say in our case with water, you can't use that for water. So what we have been trying to, we applied many years ago and still have not gotten approval for is 100% RPET. But that still, is recycled plastic. But that still doesn't solve the plastic problem, because even when something is recycled, end-of-life plastic is not dealt with, which is why we came up with the plastic exchange, which deals with end-of-life plastic.
All right, but thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
you. And the gentleman in front, sir, would you want to ask one question? Perhaps the last question.
Thank you. I think we have here examples of power couples who've been able to be successful in their careers, businesses, because they operate separately from each other. Each one in each of the couples has his or her own space. Okay, so the question is, you think if you are working within the same space, for example, you're both working in the same Century Tuna business, both of you, or in the case of
Working together.
Mikee and
Yeah.
Sheila, they're both working in Asia Air, an operating capacity. And same with, Marides and Bayani, they were mayors different times, And now, while Marides is taking care of the construction business, Bayani is back in Congress. You think the story will remain the same in terms of being able to be together in the same space and yet be able to maintain the good relationship you have as husband and wife?
Okay, very quickly, Mikee and Sheila, would you get along if you were frankly working together?
I think yes, no? But there should be boundaries. Kasi pagka sa bahay, if you go home and you still talk about the business and you sleep, habang natutulog ka, your wife will tell you, alam mo, dapat yung maintenance nung ganito lang ginastos mo. Alam mo, dapat yung marketing plan natin, ganyan. Then, mahihirapan, aawayin ko na siya. Gusto ko na matulog, no? So, there must be we can work together as long as there's a demarcation. Meaning, Sheila, pagka 9 to 5, pwede tayo mag-usap ng trabaho. 6 to 12, let me sleep or let me relax. So, maybe those are the conditions or precondition to what working together means, no? But, as I said, we have complemented each other through time, and we will remain complementary to each other, right?
All right, Marides and Bayani, would you get along if you were working together in City Hall at the same time, your desks apart from each other?
Never had such an encounter, but actually in business, I think he who holds the purse is the boss.
He who holds the gold rules.
He holds the purse. At least I know where I stand, no? So there should be no I accede to her I respect her judgment after everything. No, I really learned how to say yes, dear.
Okay. All right. With Nanette and Chris, if you were working together, I mean, you were in the States at one point, you lived abroad at one point, but you weren't working in the same office. You know what I mean? Would you get along?
Yeah, well, we do work together. We raise our 2 kids.
Nice.
No, it's true. It's,
Yeah,
it's our
okay.
most important. I mean, it's not BS, right? It's a day-to-day ground war, right?
Yeah.
I mean, trying to make sure that the kids are, grow up to be good people. And there's no for us. There's no boundaries. It could be like 11 in the evening. She wants to talk about our son. I want to
Okay.
talk about an issue.
But work, what about work?
So work, we do work together. So I am on her board. I am on the board of Hope. And then even if she officially is not working at any of our companies, she does give me advice. No? So it's that. But I think I would very much personally welcome her working with me.
Yeah.
If our tables can be together in an office, that'll be great. However, the complicating
I have a couple
thing,
of friends, they work together, they almost got a divorce.
the complicating
Yeah.
thing is, no, because we work, I think we work well together. The complicating thing is we don't operate in a vacuum. No? There's a larger context. There are managers, there are other shareholders. Number one, optics-wise, it looks bad, right? That, the husband and the wife of, publicly listed company
Yeah,
are kind of, in the same office.
Yeah, yeah.
And then there's also
In
the
same-
complicating factor of other family members who are on the board, and then also executives. No? So that's why there we have that boundary. But otherwise, I would very much welcome her to come, because she, for a good part of my working life, she was doing all of these things for me for free, and she was very effective at it.
Mikey, what do you want to say to your wife? This is how we end the panel. Short and sweet. Over.
I told them to practice.
Go, Mikey. What do you want to say to your wife?
Well, first of all, thank you for giving me 5 children. They have all been, of course, the life of our marriage, and salamat sa pagiging, for being the rock. Actually, she's the rock behind our marriage. No, she has put things together. Thank you for that, and may you continue to may you continue to be more resilient with me.
Okay. All right. Now, I'm going to have Bayani last. Chris, what would you want to say to Nanette that you haven't said yet every day?
No, I start my day very early, usually
Yeah.
before 5 a.m. And when I get up, she wakes up because she's a light sleeper. And the first thing I tell her when I wake up is, thank you very much for everything that you do.
Every day?
Every day.
Over.
The first thing I
Every
say to her,
day pagising. Thank
every
you
day,
so much.
including this
Ganon?
morning. Yes, thank you very much for everything that you do.
Grabe ka naman. Every day to, walang palya. Every day, Talaga? Ang sweet. Oh. Okay, to close the session, Bayani, what do you want to say to Marides?
Yeah, Mama, don't put to heart or don't believe everything that I've said today.
Ano, dapat may, yun na yun. Meron kang, what do you want to say as we close?
Well, we've been together for too long, no?
You mean that on a
I've said
sweet note.
everything nice to her, no? Remember, she's 12 years my junior, no? 12 years my junior. So, well, that's the beauty of having a younger wife and an older husband, no? So, I can always forgive her I, I'm old enough to understand and forgive her.
All right, well, thank you to our panelists.
It's a hand gesture sculpture. There, it's a hand gesture sculpture. It's a hand signal for okay among divers, but also means money on some occasions, okay? So, while they are posing for a picture, can I just share with you my takeout for today's session? Husbands have the last word, and they have their wives' permission to say so. When all else fails, since there is no divorce law in the Philippines, my advice, just poison your husband's coffee. Okay? With that, we congratulate our power couples here. And the marriage vows, till death do we part, in sickness and in health, and all that jazz. I think in the situation of this, it holds true. So we are believers in power couples, but most of that, we are believers in respect. Respect for each other. Respect for human dignity, regardless of gender, regardless of political beliefs, and regardless of other people's opinions. Stay together, keep powerful. This is your host, Attorney Lorna Patao Kapunan. Don't go away. We are raffling 19 tickets. And can we call on the board of directors, please, of SharePHIL?